I never imagined my greatest revenge would come wrapped in a soft blanket, with tiny fingers that clung to mine like I was their entire world. But before we get to that, let me take you back to the day I lost all faith in family, and how, from that, I found a love deeper than anything I ever thought I deserved. My name is Leela. I'm 31 now, but the story starts years ago, in a pastel pink hall decked out for my baby shower, a celebration that turned into a public takedown by the one person who should have stood by me, no matter what. My sister, Renee. Growing up, Renee was always the one people noticed. She was beautiful in the way magazines dreamed of: honey blonde hair, striking hazel eyes, and a laugh that made boys dumb. Meanwhile, I was the quieter one, soft-spoken, cautious, the background character in her ever-dramatic spotlight. Our mother called her my little movie star. And me? I was the sensible one, which might sound like a compliment, until you realize it meant the one who doesn't make waves but gets ignored all the same. It was always like that. Renee wrecked the car at 17, blamed me for borrowing. At first, I got grounded. Renee threw a tantrum because I got better SAT scores. Mum told me to let her have this one thing. And when I got pregnant, single, scared, barely hanging on, it wasn't support she gave me. It was a public spectacle. The shower was held in my aunt's backyard, all sunshine, cupcakes, and pastel balloons. I still remember the smell of sugared strawberries and anxiety. I was about 7 months along, carrying low and round like a watermelon strapped to my torso. But I was happy, or at least trying to be. It was the first thing in my life that felt completely mine. And maybe that's what Renee hated most. Everyone gathered around as I opened gifts: tiny socks, bibs that said Mommy's favorite, and pastel onesies. The last gift came in a glossy silver box with a note attached. It read, "For the mom who needs a manual. You'll need it, Renee." The box contained a thick parenting book titled, "How Not to Raise a Monster," a guide for clueless first-time mothers. There was a moment of silence, then awkward laughter. Then Renee stood up with her champagne glass and said loudly, "Well, she's gonna need all the help she can get. I mean, no job, no partner, no plan. Who actually lets someone like her have a baby?" My heart dropped into my stomach. My baby kicked at the same moment like he was reacting to her words. I didn't cry. Not there. I smiled. Tightly. Politely. Because I have learned to shrink. But that day lit a fire in me I couldn't explain. I went home, sat on the edge of my bed, held my belly, and whispered to my baby, "We're going to prove her wrong." I don't know how, but I promise. I didn't speak to Renee for months after that. And then, just 2 months after my son, Jamie, was born, my mom called in tears. Renee had disappeared. No note. No warning. Just gone. Left behind was a 2-month-old baby girl named Layla. And a nanny who said, "Your sister said you'd know what to do." I stared at the child. She had Renee's eyes, but she didn't cry. She just blinked up at me with this haunting calm. That night I held her as Jamie slept in his crib. My arms weren't ready for 2. My bank account definitely wasn't. But I kept hearing that voice, Renee's voice, telling the world I wouldn't. Be a good mother. And I made another promise. You didn't want her. Fine. I'll raise her right. Little did I know. That promise would change everything. That Layla wasn't just a baby. She was a weapon. A ticking bomb. A hidden secret waiting to blow apart every lie my sister had ever told. And I was about to raise her like she was my own. Until the day Renee came back and demanded her daughter back like she hadn't been gone for 6 years. Asterisk, asterisk. It's strange. The way your world shifts One day, you're budgeting baby wipes and worrying about whether you'll ever sleep again. The next, you're suddenly a mother of two, one who came from your body, and one from a betrayal. Layla was quiet. Too quiet. At 2 months old, she didn't wail for hours or flail her fists like Jamie had. She stared, wide-eyed, as if she was searching for something she couldn't find. I remember calling my mother the day I brought her home. She's here. I don't know for how long. My mother said flatly, "You can't possibly keep her, Lila. That's Renee's child. She'll be back." But Renee didn't come back. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I went from buying Layla a pack of diapers just to get through the weekend, to budgeting for formula and crib sheets. I started calling her my girl by accident. At first, I didn't even realize how deep I'd fallen. But it hit me one night, maybe 9 months in. Jamie had his first fever, and I was rocking him on my left side, sweat and tears on both our cheeks. Layla was in the bouncer beside us, fussing and kicking. I reached over, picked her up with one arm while still holding Jamie, and rocked them both. It's okay. Mama's here. Mama's got you." I didn't even flinch at the word. That's when I knew. It was done. I wasn't babysitting. I wasn't waiting for Renee. Layla was mine. But not everyone saw it that way. My mother, for starters, refused to even visit. "You're getting too attached, Lila. You'll end up heartbroken. And that's Renee's baby. You can't just steal someone's child." I wanted to scream at her. She left her on a doorstep with no word, no supplies, not even a bottle. And I'm the one who's wrong. But I didn't. I just stopped inviting her over. My friends were a mixed bag. Some quietly supported me. Others backed away like I was contagious. But there was one person, one unexpected person, who became my lifeline. Elias. He was a barista at the coffee shop near my job. I'd go in for a $5 latte I had no business buying, just to feel a little bit seen. One day he asked, "Rough morning?" And I said, without thinking, "My son puked on my only clean shirt, and my daughter just figured out how to remove her diaper. She's a genius and a threat." He laughed, like really laughed. Not that awkward. "Oh, please, leave" laugh I got from most people. "Well, I'm not qualified to parent, but I'm qualified to make you the strongest espresso in town." He slid it across the counter like it was medicine. And maybe it was. Elias became a constant, first as a friendly face, then as someone who offered to help carry my stroller when I had groceries in one hand and screaming toddlers in the other. Then he became more. Not romantically. Not yet. But he saw me. Not the tired, spit-up-stained, run-on-empty me, but me. 3 years passed. Layla started calling me Mama before Jamie did. She was clingy, sensitive, so emotionally tuned in it almost scared me. But she lit up when I read to her. She'd sit with her head against my chest as I told her made-up bedtime stories. One night, she whispered, "I came from you two, right, Mama?" I swallowed a sob and just said, "You came from my heart, baby. And that's even stronger." Jamie and Layla were best friends. They looked nothing alike, but when they played, they moved like two puzzle pieces that had always belonged together. I was managing. Not thriving, never thriving, but surviving. I worked 2 jobs, mornings at a school library, evenings remote as a freelance copywriter. Elias became our uncle, helping with pickups when I was running late or sick. And then, it happened. I came home to find a letter on my doormat. Cream envelope. Expensive paper. No return address. Inside was a single line in Renee's handwriting. "You've kept her long enough. I want my daughter back." My knees buckled. I sank to the floor, clutching the paper like it had claws. My hands trembled so hard I couldn't even dial my mother. I just stared at those words over and over again. I want my daughter back. After 6 years, after no contact, after no diapers, no hospital bills, no birthdays, no mothering. Now she wanted her daughter back. The next day, a lawyer showed up at my door. She had sleek red lipstick, a crocodile purse, and a smile like she enjoyed this. Miss Lila Evans? You've been served. I was being taken to court for custody theft. Let that sink in. Custody, theft. Like I had broken into Renee's life and stolen something, when she had left that child like an unwanted coat on my porch. But the worst part wasn't the paperwork, it was telling Layla. She sat on the floor in her favorite purple tutu, coloring a picture of our family, me, her, Jamie, and our dog Scruffy. And I had to say the words I never thought I would. Baby, your birth mommy. She's back. She blinked up at me, confused. But I already have a mommy. I felt like my heart shattered into a million pieces. The court date was set. People started whispering at school. The media caught wind because of course they did. Renee was back, now a wellness influencer with over 600K followers. She told the public she had suffered from severe postpartum trauma and left to heal spiritually in Bali. She showed off photos of herself meditating on cliffs and bathing in flower petals while I was scrubbing baby vomit off secondhand onesies. She said I had kidnapped her child, said I had rescued her. But the truth was about to come out, and none of us were ready for it. The morning of the hearing, I stared into the mirror for a long time. I didn't see a woman prepared to fight a courtroom battle. I saw a tired mother with dark circles, shaking hands, and a heart splitting into two. Layla's soft snores echoed from the next room. Jamie had drawn her a good luck picture stick figures of us with a big smiley sun. He didn't understand what was happening. Honestly, neither did I. I picked up a bottle of concealer, then put it back down. Let them see what motherhood actually looks like, I whispered. Renee arrived at the courthouse in designer heels and a flully cream outfit, trailed by a camera crew. Not a real one, just one of her assistants with a smartphone and a ring light clipped to it. Saw the headlines later. Influencer mom fights to reclaim the daughter she lost to sister's secret custody. And in that moment, all I saw was her smirk. She waved at me like we were at brunch. Lila, you look earthy. I clenched my fist. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Janet, murmured to me, say nothing. Let her dig her own hole. We stepped into the courtroom. It was quiet. Heavy. Layla stayed with Elias in the waiting room, coloring. She thought we were signing papers. I couldn't bear to tell her she might not come home with me. The judge was a tired man with sharp eyes and a silver beard. He raised one hand as the hearing began. Let me be clear, this is not a social media spectacle. This is a custody hearing regarding a 6-year-old child. I don't care about Bali, followers, or branding. I exhaled. A small win, Renee's. Lawyer launched first. Miss Renee Evans experienced postnatal dissociation following childbirth. She sought treatment overseas and, once stable, returned to reclaim her daughter from her estranged sister, who failed to notify authorities and kept the child illegally. Janet rose. Correction, Your Honor. My client did notify authorities. CPS was contacted. The child was abandoned. No contact for 6 years. Not even a birthday card. This wasn't co-parenting confusion. This was desertion. The judge's eyes narrowed. Miss Evans, is that true? Renee did this delicate, fake sad head tilt. I was broken. I couldn't face what I'd done. that healing isn't linear, and motherhood isn't always perfect. She turned to me with teary eyes. I'm grateful my sister cared for Layla. I truly am. But she's my daughter, and I want to be her mother now. I wanted to scream, now that the hard part was over. Now that the diaper blowouts, the midnight teething screams, the preschool separation anxiety, all that was done. I stood up. Slowly. Your Honor, I didn't steal Layla. I saved her. She was underweight, terrified, and wearing a hospital bracelet when I found her. I took her to the pediatrician. I fed her, bathed her, sang her lullabies. She calls me Mama. My voice broke. And not once, did Renee call to ask if her daughter was even alive. There was silence, the kind that shifts tectonic plates. But then, the judge asked the unthinkable. Bring in the child. I'd like to ask her something. My legs nearly gave out. Janet steadied me. Elias came in holding Layla's hand. She wore her favorite sparkly dress and carried her. Purple bunny. The judge leaned forward, softening his voice. Hi there. What's your name? Layla. Do you know who the lady sitting over there is? Layla glanced at Renee. She's the one who wants to take me. My heart stopped. And who do you live with now? My mama and Jamie. We have a dog named Scruffy. And Elias sometimes makes pancakes with sprinkles. Everyone smiled, except Renee. And how do you feel about all this? Layla clutched her bunny. I don't want to leave. My mama reads to me, and she knows I don't like cucumbers. And she sings the frog song when I can't sleep. The judge nodded. Thank you, Layla. That's all. As Elias led her out, I couldn't breathe. The judge folded his hands, looked at us. We'll reconvene in 1 week. I'll take this under advisement. 1 week. 7 days of agony. The media exploded. Renee did an Instagram live, cried, said she was being silenced, called me a jealous parasite. I didn't respond. But something changed. People started digging. One blogger posted screenshots of Renee partying in Ibiza during the time she claimed she was in silent spiritual healing. Another found out she had never attended therapy at all, just yoga, retreats and influencer events. But the biggest twist came from Elias. He showed up at my door holding an envelope. You should see this. Inside were hospital records. He'd been researching secretly, obsessively on his own. Turns out, Renee had given birth under a different name. She hadn't listed any emergency contacts. But the kicker? She had forged my signature. She wrote my name on the release forms when she checked Layla into the neonatal unit and disappeared. Which meant, legally, I was listed as the guardian. My hands shook as I stared at the paper. Elias looked me dead in the eye. She planned this, Lila, from the beginning. She was never coming back. And suddenly, everything snapped into place. The smugness, the camera crew, the timing. She didn't want her daughter back. She wanted the narrative. She wanted redemption. She wanted followers. She wanted the headline, estranged mom reclaims daughter, forgives sister. She didn't care who she destroyed along the way. But she didn't count on one thing. Wasn't the quiet background sister anymore. **** 1 week. That's how long I had to hold my breath, pretend I wasn't unraveling, and keep Layla's world spinning like everything was normal. She still danced in the living room, still asked for bedtime stories, still slipped her tiny hand into mine when we crossed the street. But at night, when she was asleep and Jamie was snoring on the top bunk, I sat in the living room, clutching those hospital documents. Elias was always there, quiet, present, like a mountain that had rooted itself beside my chaos. Neither of us said the word love, but we didn't have to. I was drowning, and he refused to let go of my hand. He believed in me when no one else had. Not even me. The night before the second hearing, I opened the drawer where I kept Layla's keepsakes, her hospital bracelet, her first tiny pair of socks, a wrinkled photo taken by the nurse the night I brought her home, cradled in my arms, both of us terrified and holding on anyway. And at the bottom, folded in four, was a letter. I hadn't opened it in years. It was the note that came with Layla tucked into the baby carrier on the night Renee disappeared. I opened it with trembling fingers. It read, "Lila, you were always the better one. The stronger one. I can't do this. Please don't hate her for my choices. Love her like I can't. I blinked. Wait. Love her like I can't." Suddenly, something clicked. The next morning, the courthouse felt colder. Bigger. The media had grown. There were actual news vans parked outside now. Renee entered in a sleek navy power suit, holding a copy of a People magazine mock cover her assistant made for press pitching. Headline: Renee Evans, A Mother's Redemption. She smiled at me, like this was a reunion special. But I had come with something stronger than a story. Had proof. And just as importantly, I had purpose. Court began with the judge looking more exhausted than before. He sighed. Let's keep it brief. I've reviewed both statements. But before I give my decision, Miss Evans, is there anything else you'd like to share? Renee stood confidently. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to submit proof that I offered my sister temporary guardianship while I sought mental health support overseas. It wasn't abandonment. It was delegation. She pulled out a fabricated document, a copy of a typed note dated and signed. I stood up. Your Honor, that's a forgery. He raised an eyebrow. You're making a serious claim, Miss Evans. I handed him the hospital release forms Elias had uncovered. This is my signature. But I never signed it. Renee used my name to check Layla into care, then left the country. She never once contacted me, not until she saw me post a photo of Layla at her birthday party on Facebook 3 months ago. I turned to Renee. You didn't come back for her. You came back for the attention, the applause. You want to be forgiven in public for something you abandoned in private. The courtroom was silent. The judge read the forms. His face darkened. Miss Evans, did you sign these medical forms under your sister's name? Renee laughed nervously. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing. I panicked. Did you tell anyone where you were going? I needed to disappear to heal. Did you send money? Contact a doctor? Call your child? Anything? Renee's face hardened. She's my daughter. Not anymore, I said. Everyone froze. You gave up that right the day you walked away. I didn't just keep her alive. I raised her. Through her nightmares, her eczema, her separation anxiety, her first steps, first words, her fear of thunderstorms. You don't get to waltz back in and take credit for the life I bled to build. My voice shook. But I didn't stop. She calls me Mama, because I am. In every way that counts. The judge leaned back, let the silence breathe. I'll deliver my ruling shortly, but I'll say this now. This child is not property, and this courtroom is not a stage. He stood, adjourned. Back home, Layla sensed something had shifted. She sat on the couch beside me, still in her glitter tutu, chewing on a fruit snack. Is the lady gone? She might be for a little while, sweetie. Layla nodded like an old soul. Good. She smells like too much spray stuff. I laughed through my tears. That night I tucked her in, kissed her forehead and just breathed. It was almost over. Or so I thought. The next day, Renee showed up at my door. No cameras. No glam squad. Just her, eyes red, voice low. Can I come in? I hesitated. You've got 30 seconds. She stepped inside, looked around at the toys, the crayon art on the walls, the half-finished laundry basket in the hallway. I didn't think you'd actually do all this. Raise her, love her. And yet I did. She nodded. She's not mine, Lila. My heart stopped. What? Renee swallowed. Layla's not biologically mine. I lied. I blinked. Don't, what are you saying? I used a donor, but not for a clinic. It was Elias. Silence. Pure, blistering silence. Elias is her biological father. Asterisk, asterisk, the room spun. Renee's words hung in the air like smoke. Elias is Layla's biological father. I stared at her. My stomach churned, my heart pounding so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. My hands went cold. You're lying. She shook her head slowly. We were seeing each other. Briefly. He didn't know. I used him without telling him. It was a one-night thing. I got pregnant. And I panicked. You don't know what it's like to feel that out of control. I don't? I laughed bitterly. I was a single mother with no support, no savings, and you humiliated me at my own baby shower. Don't talk to me about being out of control. I'm not saying it to excuse it, she whispered. I'm saying it because you deserve to know. I narrowed my eyes. Why now? Why this bombshell now? She looked down at her hands. Because I thought if I lost custody, I could still hurt you. I wanted to ruin what you had. But now I see it won't change anything. Layla's yours. She's not even mine by blood. But she's yours, Lila. I didn't know what to say. What do you say when the sister who tormented you admits she gave you a child that wasn't even hers to begin with? A child you loved with your entire soul. A child you would die to protect. And suddenly, the man you've quietly built a life with is her father. Renee left after that, just walked out the door like she hadn't lit my entire world on fire. I sat on the couch in silence for a long time. Then I called Elias. He came within 15 minutes. Breathless, eyes wild. Is Layla okay? She's asleep. I didn't say anything else. Just handed him the letter Renee left behind and watched. His face shift as he read. Shock, confusion, horror. She used me? I didn't even know she was pregnant. I nodded slowly. Apparently, you're her biological father. He sank into the chair like his bones gave out. I never knew. I swear. I would have done something. I would have. God, Lila. I crossed my arms tightly, heart aching. You've been in her life this whole time. You helped raise her. You held her when she had night terrors. You taught her how to tie her shoes. What does DNA change? Elias blinked. Nothing. I stared at him. Good, because you're not just some donor. You're her dad. You've always been. And something shifted between us. Not romance, not yet. But something deeper than blood. We were a family. Built by accident. Held together by love. And no twist, no test, no courtroom could take that away. Days passed. The judge finally released his decision. The envelope arrived in the mail. No ceremony, no cameras. Just an unassuming manila packet that held the fate of our lives. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page and one bolded line. Full legal custody awarded to Leela Evans. I fell to my knees. The tears came in waves, quiet at first, then loud and sobbing. Relief like I'd never felt before. 6 years of fear, tension, love, and heartbreak poured out all at once. Layla came in and rubbed my back. Mama, why are you crying? I smiled through the tears. Because I get to keep being your mommy forever. She tilted her head. Duh. I never thought you weren't. I wish I could tell you. Renee faded into the background. But real life doesn't wrap in neat bows. She posted a dramatic farewell to motherhood, telling her followers she had made peace with her past and would now focus on healing. Retreats and inner child therapy. The comment section tore her apart. But I didn't engage. Not anymore. I was done fighting shadows. My revenge had already bloomed. It loud. It wasn't cruel. It was raising the child she left behind into someone gentle, smart and fiercely loved. That was revenge enough. A few months later, Elias and I sat on the porch, watching Layla chase fireflies with Jamie. The sunset painted the sky in honey and rose. He looked at me, voice low. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think one day we could make this official? I smiled softly. You mean you and me? He nodded. I've already got the family. I just want the name to match. My heart fluttered. Let's start with pancakes tomorrow. Then we'll see. He grinned. Sprinkles included. Obviously. And just like that, my story turned a new page. Not about revenge anymore, but about what you build from the ashes. Asterisk. Asterisk time has a funny way of turning chaos into clarity. In the weeks after the custody ruling, everything felt quieter, not because the noise disappeared, but because I finally stopped letting it define me. I had spent so long bracing for impact, waiting for the next betrayal, the next demand, the next twist. But now, all I had to do was live. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. Began sleeping through the night without calling for me in panic. Jamie started reading chapter books and insisting he didn't need help, but still asked for smuggles when no one was looking. Elias brought pancakes every Saturday, without fail, sprinkles and whipped cream included. We'd sit on the back porch with coffee while the kids played in the yard, and I started noticing how his hand would brush against mine, just a little longer each time. Not everything was perfect. Some nights I still woke up drenched in worry. Sometimes I'd hear Layla giggle and fear losing her all over again. But those moments were becoming shadows, flickers of old fears that no longer held power over me. Because now, my house wasn't just full of children. It was full of peace, love. And possibility. It wasn't long before people around us noticed. The librarian at my school commented on how light I seemed. My friend Aria, who'd ghosted me when I took Layla in, apologized, teary-eyed, and said she'd misjudged everything. You didn't just raise 2 kids on your own, Lila. You raised yourself too. And maybe she was right. Because the version of me from that baby shower, the scared, shrinking, humiliated girl who stood silent while her sister tore her down in front of everyone, that woman was gone. I had become someone else. Someone stronger. One day, Elias brought over a small box. No ring. Not yet. Inside was a necklace, simple gold, with 2 pendants. One shaped like a sun, one like a moon. Jamie's your sun, he said. Layla's your moon. You held both in your sky, even when it was storming. I couldn't speak. I just cried. And when I leaned into him, something shifted. Not fast, not fireworks. Just the quiet click of 2 puzzle pieces sliding into place. We told Layla the full truth eventually. She was 10 by then, curious, smart, and braver than I'd ever been at her age. She asked why she didn't look like me or Jamie. Why some kids at school said weird things. We sat her down on the porch swing, the same one Elias had fixed after a storm knocked it loose. I held her hand. Elias took the other. Sweetheart, I said, you came into this world a little differently, but you've always been loved. Every single day of your life. Her lip trembled. So ... she really didn't want me. She was lost. I said gently. But you were never unwanted. Not for 1 second. You were just waiting to find your real home. She lipped between the two of us. And Elias? He's my dad. Biologically, yes, Elias said. But I was your dad long before I knew that. She nodded slowly. Cool. Can we get ice cream now? We laughed. And just like that, our messy, painful truth became just another thread in the tapestry of us. Years passed. Jamie got into robotics. Layla became obsessed with writing fairy tales. Elias and I never had a wedding, but one day she drew us as a family, crowns and capes and all, and wrote the end at the bottom like our story had finished. But it hadn't. It was just beginning. Published a book, The Child She Left Behind. It wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. It was about love, forgiveness, and the power of choosing your own family. It hit bestseller lists. Book clubs picked it up. Moms wrote me letters from across the country saying they felt seen for the first time in years. Renee tried to clap back online. Claimed the story was fabricated. Said I was milking drama for profit. I didn't respond. Because for once in my life, I didn't need to. My life spoke for itself. My children were thriving. My heart was whole. My sister. She could scream into the void all she wanted. But I had chosen something quieter. Something stronger. Something permanent. One evening many years later, Layla sat across from me at the dining table. 17 now, wiser than most adults I knew. She tapped her pen against her notebook, frustrated. I can't figure out how to end this short story. I smiled. Then don't force it. Let the ending come to you. She looked up. Is that what you did? With your story? I thought for a second. Sort of, I just kept living. And one day I realized. I wasn't stuck anymore. The pain wasn't the whole plot. It was just the beginning. Layla grinned. You should put that on a t-shirt. I reached over and ruffled her hair. Maybe I will. Right next to, I told you I'd be a good mom. She laughed, this full-bodied, real laugh that filled the whole room. And that sound, that joy, that was my ending. Not Renee's words. Not the baby shower humiliation. Not the courtroom or the trauma. This. Right here. This was where the story really lived. Asterisk. You never really know what your earliest memories mean until you're old enough to understand the weight behind them. Remember warm hands brushing my hair. A voice singing off-key but so gently that I thought it was magic. I remember being afraid of the dark, but never afraid when I was near her. That her was my mom, not the one who gave birth to me, but the one who never left. The one who stayed through everything. My name is Layla Evans. I'm 25 now. And I'm telling this part of the story not because I think it's mine alone to tell, but because there was always a piece of me that wanted to understand how love found me. When someone else had walked away. As a kid, I never felt different. Not really. Jamie was my brother in every way that mattered. Elias was always there, solid and warm and patient. And my mother, she was my moon, my North Star. The reason I felt safe in my skin, even when life didn't make sense. I only started asking questions when the world started asking them first. In middle school, a girl asked me, "Why don't you look like your mum?" At first, I thought she meant the hair. I had tight curls and caramel skin. My mom had pale freckles and soft brown waves. Because I'm cooler, I joked. But that night, I asked my mom the truth. She told me everything. And do you know what amazed me? Not the lies, not the courtroom, not the DNA twist. What amazed me was how she still chose me. How she could have given me back. How she could have said, "This isn't my fight." But instead, She made me her daughter. In every way that counted. I grew up strong because she was strong. Got into a creative writing program because she taught me how powerful stories are. I learned how to comfort others because she'd spent my entire life comforting me. And now, I teach young girls like me, kids who were adopted, or raised by someone they weren't supposed to be raised by. I tell them, love doesn't need permission to be real. They listen, wide-eyed. And I know I got that line from her. When I was 23, I got a message. It was short, sent from a burner account. No picture. It said, I watched from a distance. I'm glad you turned out okay. I stared at it for 10 minutes. And then I blocked it. Because the person who wrote that was not my mother. She was a shadow. A closed chapter. My real mom was downstairs, making lasagna from the same stained recipe card she'd used since I was 6. Laughing at Elias's awful dad jokes. Helping Jamie assemble his grad school applications. That was my family. The one built from patience. From survival. From the kind of love that doesn't ask for applause. On my 25th birthday, I gave my mom a book. It was leather bound. Gold foil title on the front. It read, To the woman who chose me. Inside were all the letters I'd written to her but never sent. One on my first day of high school. One after my first heartbreak. One on the night I found out she gave up her entire 20s just to raise me and Jamie without ever once making us feel like a burden. She opened it. Her hands trembled. She read every page, quietly, and then she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. You were never my burden, Layla. You were always my gift. That's the thing about family. Sometimes it's chosen. Sometimes it's inherited. But the strongest kind? The kind that doesn't break? It's built. One sacrifice at a time. One bedtime story. One scraped knee kiss. One silent promise, whispered into the dark. I won't leave. And my mother, she never did. Not once. Asterisk. It had been nearly 2 decades since that baby shower. Since Renee stood up in front of everyone and told the world I'd be a terrible mom, and yet here I was. 2 grown kids. A loving home. A man by my side who never walked away. Even when the truth shook the ground beneath us. I thought we were done with the past. I thought Renee had faded into it like an old bruise, something you forget about until it aches on a rainy day. But ghosts don't like being forgotten. It started with whispers. An email from a journalist. A tip from a mutual friend on Facebook. Then, a podcast episode. She called it The Sister Who Stole My Life. Renee had rebranded again. No longer a spiritual influencer, no longer the victim of postpartum trauma. Now, she was a truth teller. A survivor of familial manipulation. And apparently I was the villain. The episode was full of lies. She claimed I faked the hospital documents. That I bribed the courts. That I alienated Layla from her real mother. She said she was ready to reclaim the daughter that was brainwashed against her. It was disgusting. But what made it worse? The podcast went viral. People started tagging me on Instagram. My inbox filled with hate and pity. My name, my family's name, was suddenly everywhere again. Layla came home from work one day with red eyes and a clenched jaw. Mum, she used photos of us. I blinked. What? From my blog. Pictures of me and you and Elias us cooking together. Jamie's graduation. My birthday dinner. She pulled them and used them in the episode's promo video. She's saying you stole me for social media likes. That did it. I had stayed silent for years. I had chosen peace over pride. I had protected my kids' privacy and let Renee's flames burn themselves out. But this was war. I didn't scream. I didn't write a counterpost. I called Alawia, not Janet. She had retired. But her protege, Clarissa, she was even sharper. She used your family photos without consent, made defamatory statements and published them for profit. We're suing. I didn't do it for vengeance. I did it because Layla deserved better than to be used again. I did it because Jamie had college interviews and didn't need reporters hounding him. I did it because Elias looked me in the eye that night and said, "You've protected everyone for so long, Lila. Let us protect you this time." The lawsuit made headlines. And for the first time, the narrative shifted in our favor. People dug deeper. Renee's followers saw through her facade. Former colleagues of hers came forward with stories of manipulation, lies, unpaid partnerships. She lost brand deals. Her podcast got pulled from platforms. She went from trending ... to cancelled ... and when the judge ruled in our favor, $2.4 million in damages. She tried to appeal. She lost. Then, she disappeared again. No fanfare this time. No final video. No dramatic exit. Just silence. I wish I could say it didn't leave a mark, that we healed instantly and moved on. But scars are real. Even quiet trauma leaves fingerprints on your soul. Layla went to therapy. Jamie became hyper-protective of his younger sister. Elias kept triple-locking the front door, and me. I finally admitted something I hadn't said out loud before. I was tired, not of motherhood, not of love, but of constantly having to prove that I was good enough to be here, to be a mom, to be their mom, so I did something radical. I rested. I let go of the need to justify my existence. I took my kids on a vacation. I turned off my phone. I planted a vegetable garden. I joined a book club. I let Elias convince me to try roller skating even though I was awful at it. And I laughed. God, I laughed so much. Year after the lawsuit, Layla came to me with a proposal. I want to write a book. With you, about everything. But from both sides. She had that gleam in her eyes, half scared, half fire. Not for revenge. Not even to explain. Just to record it. So people like us don't feel so alone. We wrote it together. Late nights. Spilled tea. Tears and truths and forgiveness poured into each chapter. We called it Mothered Twice. And this time no one could twist the story. Because it was ours. Because we owned it. Because it was told by the only two people who actually lived it. The day it hit #1 on the nonfiction bestseller list. I sat in the backyard while Elias grilled and the kids chased each other around the swing set. I looked around at my family. My real, built from love, forged through fire, held together by choice family. And I whispered to myself. They said I'd be a terrible mom. I smiled. So I became the best one she never was. It's strange how the years move faster once the pain stops anchoring you in place. One moment, you're clutching your newborn niece in a hospital hallway, promising you'll figure it out. The next, you're standing in a packed auditorium watching that same girl walk across a stage in cap and gown, her curls bouncing, her smile proud, her voice steady as she accepts her diploma. Layla graduated, summa cum laude, with a degree in child psychology. Jamie stood beside me, taller than Elias now, hands in his pockets, trying not to cry. "You did it, Mom," he whispered. I laughed. Softly. We did it. Elias and I had never married. People always asked why. And the answer? We didn't need the ceremony. We had already built the vows. Through every scraped knee, every sick day, every late-night school project, every courtroom battle, every whispered bedtime story, we'd said, "I do," 1,000 times without ever putting on rings. But on Layla's graduation day, He pulled me aside beneath a maple tree on campus. He held out a small, weathered photo, the one the nurse had taken the night I brought Layla home. Me, exhausted but smiling. Layla, tiny and bundled. Our beginning. You became her mother long before you knew you were ready, he said. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thin velvet box. Inside. A ring. Simple, elegant, timeless. And I became yours. Long before I ever deserved to be. My breath caught. My eyes welled. I didn't say yes. I laughed the kind of laugh that held years of pain, joy, stubbornness, and healing. Then I kissed him. And that was our answer. Layla opened her own practice. At 26, a counseling center for children of unconventional families. She painted the walls herself. Jamie helped design the logo. I brought over lunch on her first day, and she had already framed a quote by the reception desk. Love is not biology. Love is bravery. She told me one night over tea. You gave me more than a childhood. You gave me a compass. So now I help others find their own North Star. I cried. Of course. She always did that, pierced me with tenderness when I least expected it. Renee never resurfaced. The silence stayed final this time. Whether she moved overseas or finally chose introspection, I'll never know. But I don't need to. Because we no longer lived in the shadow of her choices. We built our lives like sunflowers, faces turned toward the warmth we created ourselves. Final twist came years later. I was cleaning the attic, sorting through old boxes when I found that letter again. The one Renee had left the night she abandoned Layla. Love her like I can't. And I realized something. She was right about me. Not because I was better, but because I showed up. Even when I was scared, even when I was broke, even when the world said I'd fail, I showed up. Again and again and again. And in doing so, I became something no podcast, no DNA test, no courtroom ruling could undo. I became her mother. A year later, Layla got married. She wore ivory. I wore navy. As I walked her down the aisle. Yes, me. Not Renee, not anyone else. She squeezed my hand tight. You know, she said with a grin. Technically, this makes you a grandmother. Next. I laughed. But when I looked in her eyes, I saw it. The cycle continuing. Not the trauma, not the abandonment, but the healing, the love, the strength passed from one woman to another, not through blood, but through choice. Through staying. Later that night, Elias and I danced under a canopy of string lights. Jamie toasted us, his voice cracking halfway through, but everyone smiling through tears. To my mum, he said, the strongest person I've ever known. And to the family she built out of ashes, out of chaos, out of love. You taught us what it means to fight without bitterness, to protect without pride, and to love without condition. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not because of revenge, but because we had won. Not against Renee, but for ourselves. For the life they said I'd never build, for the mother they said I'd never be. *** years later, I still catch myself thinking back to that baby shower. To the whispered doubts, the cruel words, the harsh judgments. How many times I wanted to hide. How many nights I question if I was enough. But here's the truth I've learned. Your past does not define your future. Your family is not just who you're born to, but who chooses to stand by you. And most importantly, the kind of mother you are isn't measured by blood or biology. It's measured by love. I raised a daughter who knows what it means to be loved fiercely. I raised a son who sees strength in kindness. I built a home where forgiveness is a language and hope has always spoken. The woman who tried to break me. She's a chapter in my story, but not the ending. Because the ending is me standing tall, not just surviving, but thriving. And when I look at Layla now strong, compassionate and unstoppable, I know the fight was worth it. For every sleepless night, for every tear shed, for every whispered promise I made in the dark. I will never leave you. That promise held, and it always will. So to anyone listening who feels broken, doubted, or abandoned, know this. You are more than your circumstances. You are stronger than the pain you carry. And love will find a way, even when it feels impossible. Because family is more than DNA. Family is heart. And that is something no one can ever take away. Thank you for listening to my story. May it remind you that no matter how hard the fight, no matter how deep the wounds, you have the power to choose love, to choose healing, to choose yourself. And that makes all the difference. Asterisk, thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment revenge. As well as please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Asterisk.